If you live in Rawlins, Wyoming, you love baseball. At least on this day in mid 1911, you do. The crowd's packed in tight, excited to see some play. Thomas Cameron stands on the pitcher's mound. He kicks his leg up high, a sort of yoga pose almost, before slamming his foot back to the ground and releasing his pitch. The batter, waiting eagerly, squares up the fastball and makes contact. He finds a gap in the outfield and he trots in for a double. Thomas Cameron was dying out there on the mound, both figuratively and literally. And he wasn't just killing himself. All 12 of the guys in the field were victims here. But they weren't exactly innocent either. They were 3 murderers, 5 thieves, 3 rapists, and a forger. This is the story of how a 12-man prison baseball team got to play in games with their lives at stake. These men fought for their freedom and time with bats and balls. We're gonna jump right into this, but to do that, we gotta take the old time machine, because we're gonna be going way back. We have to really reverse the clock, all the way to the early history of baseball. 1945, by the way. World War II ended here. Not important for this video at all, but you should know that. We just gotta keep going this way. Some more. And here we go. Here is 1911. This is where our story takes place, and this is where we're going to be spending most of our time. But the very start of this story, well, the seeds were planted way back in 1881. We are traversing centuries here. And finally, we can take a peek into the small town of Rawlins, Wyoming. Now, in 1881, you can probably sort of imagine what it's like in small town Wyoming. It's the wild fucking West. This is a place that had like 10-pace duels and killed people and displayed their bodies in public and cowboys with lassos, real Western stuff here. But what we really want to focus on is how harsh criminals were treated. Specifically here in our town of Rawlins. Oh, sorry, it's 1881. They're not criminals, they're desperados. And you can see from this old New York Post article talking about the time period that punishment for serious crimes could include being hanged and even skinned publicly. And if we go on down here, in our very year of 1881, this guy George Parrott killed 2 police officers in a train robbery in Rawlins. So what did they do to punish him? They made shoes from his skin. The town hunted him down and body bagged him. And these are the real goddamn shoes. That is George right there as a shoe. So this is really all we have to see in the year of 1881. I mean, really bring back our time machine now. I just wanted to set the scene of what it was like in Wild West Wyoming, and I feel like now we got a pretty good understanding on that. So let's jump a bicentennial up to the year 1901. It's a quick stop, but it's in this year that the Wyoming State Penitentiary was first opened up. Now, this guy, Otto Graham, was the very first warden, and he kind of did a lot of weird, shady stuff. We're not really going to get into it because it was before the baseball team. But you just got to know that he made a lot of money by forcing the prisoners to work for him in basically like sweatshop conditions. He ran them through 14-hour workdays, and he would calculate each meal down to the bean to make sure the prisoners got just enough food to stay alive and no more. But eventually, in 1911, this inhumane system was discovered and banned. The prison was handed over to the town's sheriff, a man by the name Felix Alston. Alston served as the new warden of the prison, and he wanted to turn it into a decent place. Alston was a much better warden, treating inmates with respect and establishing educational programs in the prison, and field trips outside of it. Life was getting better for the inmates. In some of their newfound free time, the prisoners began playing baseball. Quickly, Alston realized that some of the inmates playing were borderline professional level. And just as quick, the gears in Warden Alston's head, they started to turn. Sure, Felix Alston was doing better things overall and improving this prison, but come on, it's 1911, and he saw a chance to make some quick money. This guy's more corrupt than the Pope. And just like the Pope, if there was one thing that could really get the warden going, it was gambling. It was gambling. Felix Alston, as with many Wyoming residents of the time, was a heavy gambler. So, of course, logically, he throws together a team of 12 death row inmates that looked pretty good at baseball in the prison yard. And he's going to use them to make himself a whole bunch of money gambling. Is that the coolest idea you've ever heard? Probably. Is it also a pretty wild idea, though? Yeah. But the real question is it legal?
Absolutely fucking not.
But I promise you, the law wasn't going to stop anyone in this story. The Death Row All-Stars were rounded up, given uniforms, and made a team. I mean, they called themselves a team, isn't that really all it takes? It didn't take long for Felix Alston to get a game scheduled. The Wyoming Supply Company Juniors were a work baseball team that was one of the better teams in the state. And this isn't your dad's slow pitch company softball league. Some of these teams were taken pretty seriously back in the day, and this team specifically was seen as very legit. So for who knows what reason, this highly taunted supply company team agreed to play against 12 major criminals in an organized baseball game. What could go wrong? Now, we really gotta remember that this was just recreational baseball for the players. They weren't getting paid or anything. And in all honesty, they were just being used as a pawn for some powerful men to make money. A lot of people, including the warden himself, had a lot of money bet on the death row guys to win. The warden had really been spreading the word that a lot of these guys could play, and this game had become quite the spectacle. People were interested.
I'm telling you the truth. There's all I can tell you, boys. It's there.
So they play the game, and our death row team absolutely dominates. I wish we had video footage, man. I really do, but the Death Row All-Stars ate up the supply company team by a score of 11-1. And yeah, I do have to break it to you that this isn't the real game, despite how accurate it looks. It's just a depiction. But the team won easily, and they made a lot of rich guys happy. This shows to me that people with enough money will bet on anything. And this was like a real full-blown game with stats and everything too. With those stats, we can see that the death row ball players were led by this guy, Joseph Sang, who played right field and hit 2 home runs in this game, one of them a grand slam. And it would be around this time, with Joseph Sang himself, that the real corruption started to kick in. Joseph Sang just won a lot of people money. One of those people happened to be the governor of Wyoming. That governor also just happened to be very close friends with the warden, Felix Alston. Shocking, I know. So, the governor had inside knowledge and was going to be able to profit off this too. As long as they had Joseph Sang on the team, things were looking pretty, and they treated Sang like a star. But, well, Joseph Sang had murdered his girlfriend's husband in cold blood like a couple months ago. This guy was supposed to be executed. It had almost been forgotten that the man being flaunted around was still a deranged criminal, and his execution date was coming up quickly. The fun may be over sooner than everyone thought. But who knows? It's a dirty world we live in. Rumors started swirling around the prison that Joseph Sang may be kept alive so he can keep playing baseball. And once these rumors broke, it was chaos. Players realized that they could possibly have their lives extended for playing good baseball. The warden was also rewarding players with extra activities and little gifts throughout the prison for good play. There was now a full incentive system to play as good as possible for this baseball team. And what I really wonder is, yeah, if you play good, you get a reward. Okay, but did it go the other way? Like, if you made a couple errors, could they move your execution date up? Like, yeah, no pressure, but get on base, bud, or you're gonna die next week instead of next month. People are continuing to talk in the prison. Everywhere you look, people are hearing that these baseball players are being kept alive solely for their ability on the field. This isn't sitting well with the rest of the death row inmates, who were in fact still being killed as scheduled. So, a devious prison plot was hatched to get back at the system and kill Joseph Tseng. A prisoner sneaks up a staircase to a building roof in the prison, where there's a huge tub of sand that's usually used for garbage. The prisoner peeks over the edge, and directly below him sees Joseph Tseng standing obliviously. With a massive grunt and a shove of effort, the sand tub goes tumbling over the edge, directly towards Tseng. He doesn't see his own life coming to a close, right above him. It's mournful. At the last second, Joseph Tseng unknowingly turns to say something to a nearby guard. His life continues, by literal inches. This inhumane, gambling-fueled, corrupt-hearted experiment that just happened to occur on a baseball field had gone way too far. They had played just one single baseball game so far, and it sprouted thousands of dollars bet, prison and death sentences toyed with, and an attempted murder. They obviously had to call off this whole death row baseball team. Just kidding. They didn't care. Like at all. Shortly after the failed assassination attempt on Joseph Tseng, the team was called together for a practice. And the warden, still Mr. Felix Alston, told the team this.
Prisoners who make errors that cost the team a game will have more time added to their sentence. Winning will lead to reduced time and stays of execution. There was no hiding it anymore. There were no more rumors. The warden himself was coming out and telling the players directly how it was. Fueled by their higher-ups gambling to make a quick buck, these inmates now possess the full ability to play their way out of their crimes.
Yeah, so there was no cooling off. And the team wasn't cooling off either. They played their second game against the same team and beat them by the exact same score, 11-1. The criminals wiped the field again. With everything going on, you'd think they'd be flustered, but, I mean, these guys were already playing for their literal lives, so pressure? It's nothing to them. Oh yeah, and Joseph Tseng, 4 for 4 and a perfect day in the field. Absolutely stunting on the people that want him dead. And it wasn't long until the third game, where the Cons again dropped 11 runs this time, winning 11-4. This was a mean machine. They could not be stopped. Again, plenty of Wyoming cattlemen were betting on these games, and the prisoners were making some good friends in these gamblers. Specifically still, the governor kept on winning money every single game. Everything looked great right now, but everything was also riding on thin ice. Ice that was crumpling and was about to shatter below. Joseph Tseng's execution date was finally here, August 22nd. Rumors were still whirling around that he may be kept alive for baseball. And sure enough, on August 23rd, Joseph Tseng was still alive. This is for the simple reason that they still had a game scheduled on August 29th. Oh, yeah, and who controlled the executions in the state of Wyoming? The governor. The governor that had won money on every game and was gonna do it again. Yeah, that governor. And miraculously, again, Joseph Tseng dodged death. 6 days later, on the 29th, The death row team played again and won again. This put them at 4-0 all time. Sadly though, but probably for the best morally, this was the last game the Wyoming Prison squad ever got to play. They went out on top, but they didn't get to go out on their own. And that honestly seems like the best way this could have all been handled. The governor started being investigated into his illegal gambling activities. Because of this, he dropped all the fun and created a statewide crackdown on gambling to try and make himself look better. He sent a written letter to Warden Alston as well, warning him of what was coming. As soon as he received the letter, Warden Felix Alston put an end to the prison baseball team. He replaced the venture with educational pursuits for prisoners instead. No players were fully released from jail or avoided death because of the team. Joseph Sang was eventually executed about 8 months later after playing good baseball for a slightly extended life.